Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Ruach Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Genesis, the 41st chapter. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And this is dealing with the Nile River. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed. So he sees these 7 cows, right, which look like good. They look, nourished, right? And that's what it means by well-favored and fat-fleshed. And they fed in a meadow. So they were basically eating on some grass somewhere. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river. So afterwards he saw another 7 cows that came out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed. So if we look up here, let's say fat fleshed cow. That might be a little on the extreme side of things, right? But it's basically like a regular cow. All right, let's look at a cow. Yeah, there you go. Now this is a ill-favored lean cow right here. Okay, compared to the other ones where you can literally see it's like, now it may be old, but you get the image, right? It's like super lean. It's like the dog from what show was that? That Family Guy or Back at the Barnyard? But yeah, you see its bones and so on and so forth. Its skin is cleaving to its bones. So basically that's like an example of like the ill-favored. So they came up afterwards and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. So right the river bank. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored fat kine. So they basically, well, as it says, they ate them, right? They devoured them. So Pharaoh awoke. So he might have seen this looking like a weird sight for him, right? He's seen like these lean, skinny cows, and they're just like eating up these fat cows. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed, oh, there we go, verse 5. And he slept and dreamed a second time. So he woke up out the first dream, and then he went back to sleep, and he had another dream. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk. And the stalk is like the stem, right? If you look up here, let's look up here, corn stalk, this thing right here, okay? And then you have the ears that are almost like in the branches there, okay? So that's what it looks like. So he sees this 7 ears of corn in one stalk, rank and good. So they look nice. They look like, yeah, this is good product right here. And beheld 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And when you look up, basically the corn, the second 7 did not look good, right? They look like destroyed, okay? And when you look up here, let me see if it'll tell us the east wind in here, but it was basically, it destroyed crops because of the conditions that it brought with it, ranging from the temperature and so on and so forth. I want to see if east wind. Okay, let's take a look here. Yeah, it says here, the wind coming from the east, blight caused by this wind, thin ears, the withered gourd. It was a cause and also the emblem of evil. In Palestine, this wind blows from a burning desert and hence is destitute of moisture necessary for vegetation. So in other words, it can suck out the moisture out of the crops. Hence, they look destroyed, blasted. And the 7 thin, yeah. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. This is the corn, that is. So he sees the destroyed looking corn eating the good corn. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. And this was the Most High setting up an occasion to raise up Joseph. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. And what he is saying there is his fault in not remembering or in forgetting about Joseph. Because remember, Joseph, after interpreting his dream, told him, don't forget about me. When you go, speak my case to Pharaoh. But he forgot. So he's like, yes, that's what I forgot. Because he remembered dealing with the interpretation of dreams. That's what Joseph did for him. Verse 10, Pharaoh was wroth with his servants and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker, right? And so the ward, being like the holding or like a prison, okay? But you might say a less severe place, than like, let's say somebody who commit murder or something like that. Anyway, it says here, and we dreamed a dream in one night. So we both had a dream one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream, meaning we both, had dreams, but each dream had its own interpretation. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew servant of the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. So basically, the butler is saying that just as Joseph had interpreted to them, that's exactly what happened, right? He interpreted a dream that the butler would be restored to his office, and the baker would be hung. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. Because there was a certain appearance that like today, if you go for a job interview, there's certain appearance, depending on where you work, there's certain appearances that they require of you. Some places might even ask you to shave your beard, and at that point you let them know, well, hey, listen, you either give me the job or you find somebody else. Anyway, there was a certain presentation, right, that you had to be in. So Joseph shaved himself. Now, it doesn't go into detail, if he shaved his hair off his head or just his face or whatever the case is. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee, that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. So Joseph, and it's kind of similar to Daniel, right? At least in what they even said here, in not taking credit for it, right? And Joseph says basically it's not me, it's not my power. Okay, it's really from the Lord. He would just, he just used me as a vessel, right? So the Most High is going to give you an answer, and of peace, meaning it'll bring you peace of mind because you understand what your dream means. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored. And they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I had never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. Oh, they were terrible. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them up, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I awoke. So he's saying, like, they ate the fat cows, but you couldn't tell because they still looked the same. They still looked skinny and malnourished. Verse 22, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. This corn, that is. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin and blasted, with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath shewed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. This dream is one. So what it means is that you saw 2 dreams, but they're talking about the same thing. The 7, the 7 kine, the good cows that you saw, they represent 7 years, and so do the 7 ears of corn. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears, blasted with the east wind, shall be 7 years of famine. So the 7 good cows and the 7 good corn represent 7 years. The 7 bad cows and the 7 bad corn represents another 7 years. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. So this is what I mean. What God is about to do, he sheweth unto Pharaoh. So you've seen this because this is really a vision of what the Lord is about to do to this land. Behold, there shall come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And that's what the first 7 cows, the good cows and the good corn represented. Plenty meaning you're going to have a great harvest, right? You're going to have an abundance for 7 years. And there shall arise after them, so the next 7 years, 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. So this you're going to have a great, plenteous 7 years of harvest and so on, and successful crops and all of that. But the next 7 years following that are going to be full of a severe famine. So bad that you won't even remember the good 7 years you had before. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. So the reason why you saw this dream twice in different ways is the Lord emphasizing that this is what he is determined to do, and that's what he's about to make it happen very soon. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. So now Joseph advises Pharaoh. He says, look, find somebody that you trust, somebody that is responsible, that is wise, and put them in charge over the matters of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this. Let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. So basically, appoint men throughout your whole land, and during the harvest, they would receive or collect a 5th of all the increase of everybody's harvest of the land during these next 7 years of having the plenteous or the bountiful harvest. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. So basically let them gather up that 5th part, and store it up, and basically under the control of Pharaoh, right? So like today you would say like federal control. And let them keep food in the cities, and they would need to open or set up, if they didn't already, storehouses or pantries for this. So in all the different cities, there would be allotted places or storehouses where a 5th of all the harvest would be stored for each city in there. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine. So when the 7 years of famine comes, that'll be where your storehouse is, where you'll get the food from, because you've basically been preparing for those 7 years, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine, so that you can have food to eat during the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. So they were like, damn, that's, yeah, no, that's good. That's good. It makes sense. It makes sense. And that's some great advice right there. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such an one as this is? A man in whom the Spirit of God is. Or in other words, where are we going to find somebody like this? You know? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath shewed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. So he said, well, where, who better to go to than to you? I mean, you are wise enough for the Lord, the Most High, to reveal this to you. So I think you'd be the perfect man for the job. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. So he appointed Joseph to basically be like governor, right? To govern everything that was under the control of Pharaoh. And the only thing that was of a higher authority than Joseph was Pharaoh himself. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand. And what that signified was the ring had a signet, and that was what would be used to stamp any. Today, the equivalent is when you have a president that signs executive orders. When he signs it, he basically authorizes it, right? Back then, you would use the signet of the one in authority. And so by giving the ring to Joseph, Joseph now had authority to issue orders and what today you would call executive orders and so on in the name of Pharaoh, all right, or to authorize it. It says here, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen and put a chain or a gold chain about his neck and made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, which was a chariot reserved for you could say the second in command of the Pharaoh. And they cried before him, bow the knee. So whenever, before Joseph got there, they basically commanded everybody bows and made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And that's a very big deal. Okay. Egypt was not a small, town or neighborhood at this time. Egypt was one of the most advanced civilizations at this time, So to be made ruler over all that land, Joseph was a big man. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. So yes, I am the Pharaoh. However, if you don't authorize it, nothing happens, right? Nobody gets to do anything without your authorization. And this was all the Lord's doing, right? The Most High is the one who set this up to put Joseph in this position. And Pharaoh called, and there's a precept where the scriptures say that it is a light thing for the Lord to make a man rich. Now, this isn't really about riches, but this is just an example of how quickly and how, with ease, the Lord can flip your situation here. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath Paaneah, which when you go into the name of that, it says here, treasury of the glorious rest. Interesting. So what's that? Tazapanath, Pa'inath, or Pa'inath, or Pa'inach. Yeah. Tazapanath, Pa'inach, which is there. They said treasury of the glorious rest. Interesting. And he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went went out over all the land of Egypt. So he basically ruled over them. And let's take a look here at the interlinear. Let's look at the name here of his wife, Asenath. There we go. Asenath, belonging to the goddess Neith. And turns out this Potipharah was, as it says, a priest of On. And when you go into that On, what's the Ainun or Anun? Strength or vigor, a city in Lower Egypt, bordering land of Goshen, center of sun worship, residence of Potipharah, priest of On, and father-in-law of Joseph. So imagine that. The Lord allowed Joseph to basically marry the daughter of a sun worshiping priest. But it was all based on the circumstance here. That the Lord didn't say, oh, I'm going to slay Joseph for that. No, because he set it up this way. And it says here, verse 46, and Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And I believe he was sold somewhere around 17. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. So at this point, it had been some time, right? Over a decade, give or take, since he was sold, right? Brought into the land of Egypt, worked for Potiphar, worked there for some time, then was accused, then was thrown into the ward, and then stayed there for a good amount of years. And now we have this here. So as it says here, and went throughout all the land. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls, meaning it brought forth in abundance. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, and the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. So you had storehouses in the different cities, and what they collected, they stored in there. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, so it was innumerable, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. So it became so much that he just stopped keeping track. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of his firstborn Manasseh. For God, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the toil are the troubles, basically, that he went through, and all his father's house. And what that means is not that he forgot his family, but the events that transpired in his youth. And the name of the second called he Ephraim. For God hath caused me to be fruitful, which in the Hebrew is aparium, which is fruitful, in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteous that was in the land of Egypt were ended. So now begins the years of famine. And just because he was married to a daughter of let's say a pagan priest, it didn't. What Joseph did was he still stayed right, in the right spirit, right. He still continued to follow after Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Hence, he was good, right. He didn't start to now go into those ways and start to idol worship or worship the sun god and so on and so forth. Verse 54, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And that dearth is like like a drought, famine. Let's actually go into that. Yeah, famine. Okay, hunger, which sometimes is caused by drought, but that's not the only case. Where we at? So when the 7 years of famine began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all the lands, or was in all lands. So it wasn't just Egypt that was hit with this famine, it was really all around. But in all the land of Egypt, there was bread. See, all lands meaning all neighboring, all lands that were around, like the land of Canaan and so on. But obviously those in Egypt had food to eat because of the storage. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph. What he saith to do, or what he saith to you, do. So he directed them to Joseph, because he's the one in charge of all this. So you go to him and follow his instructions. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. So as it says, all the face of all the earth. But, this was, yeah, okay. So probably like the known region, I would say here, right? Because you had places that were like far east, like India, right? And going even further into like Mesopotamia and all those regions over there, in which you did have people dwelling over there, but they didn't perish of famine. So maybe they were affected as well. But scripture just, as it says, over all the face of the earth. And sometimes when it says that, because when you go into the word earth here, I believe in the Hebrew should be arataza, which also means land. And land can be referring to the entire planet, but it could also be referring to specific regions, right, or district. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. Now, it wasn't that Joseph himself went to every single city, opened every single storehouse, and then sat at the gate. And no, he appointed people to do that. But he gave the order or the authorization for the storehouses to be opened, and then they could sell, to the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. So you had people of the neighboring, nations and regions traveling to Egypt to come and buy corn, right, for food, because once again, it was a really bad famine. So you see how the Lord has now set up Egypt through the hand of Joseph to be in a very advantageous position. And that brings us to the end of the book of Genesis, the 41st chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.